Recovered alcoholic. My name is Pat Rogan.
Pat Rogan.
Thanks to the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous outlined in this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the program of AA, I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And for that, I'll be forever grateful. AA didn't just save my life, but it gave me a new life. I'm just really overwhelmed with gratitude today. It's just on my way here, I was just thankful to be here. This is such a great room, man. There's just such great energy in this room. I think it's become my favorite, right up there with the 101. But Shannon, Colton, welcome. You just changed the whole talk. And Joe, that was impressive. I mean, I don't think he looked at the paper when you read that shit.
Nope.
I forgot your name after you said your name. That's good, man. I was on my way over here, and I was thinking about, where I was and where I'm at now, and where this program has brought me, and obviously we're going to talk about step 6 here, the step that separates the men from the boys, the girls from the women, where the rubber meets the road. But there was a lot of work to get here, and I remember getting here, divorced, lost my house, lost custody of my son, both my sons, and I was debating whether I should ride the sawgrass or smoke. That's where I was financially. Should I stop driving the sawgrass or should I quit smoking? Because that's how tight my finances were with child support. And, I was just about to get fired. I was living in the back room of my mother's, lost the house. And I look at my life today, how incredible I have it. How blessed I am. And not just on the outside, but the outside is like the obvious. I was thinking about us with the Panther season tickets, and what I drive today, and the relationship that I'm in today is just incredible. I have somebody walking this walk with me, and I'm on my way to Thursday morning. I'm on my way to Paris, and then to Amsterdam, and then to England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, the English Channel, and it's all because of this program. It's all because of this program. None of it exists without this, And I remember arguing with my home group at the time when they asked me what my priorities were, and I said, well, my kids. That's my priority. I said, really, Pat, I think AA needs to be your number one priority. I said, no, that's just not possible. My children are the most important thing in my life. Matter of fact, number 2 might be my job, because without my job, I can't support my children. And I said, and then my house is probably right up there in the top 3, because without shelter, my children have nowhere to live. And I don't know where my wife was at that time. She was 5 or 6 or something. Hence the divorce. And they had to remind me that you lost all that. That's why you're here, Pat, because you lost all that. And I didn't get that at first. I just couldn't wrap my head around that at first. And it wasn't until I made this the most important thing in my life. And it's still, by the way, the most important thing in my life is my recovery and my relationship with the people in recovery and working with alcoholics in recovery. And it just, but it all started with that, with this new way of life. Somebody asked me if there was anybody in the room that wanted to start a new way of life, and I just jumped up out of my chair. I didn't even know what that meant. I was at my first meeting at the 5th Chapter Club. I think it was an 8:30 meeting. I don't remember anything that was said in the meeting, and I'm sure some of you won't remember anything that was said in this meeting. It was like Charlie Brown's teacher up there, All I could think about was getting the house back and getting the relationship back and get my children back, get the restraining order and the charges dropped. And I didn't hear a word except for that. Does anybody want a new way of life? And I jumped up out of my chair and had no idea what I was getting involved in. It was my first time ever at an AA meeting. I didn't even know you didn't drink. I had no idea. My sister had been in AA for years and she drank, And I thought like you guys figured it out, But it wasn't It wasn't long where I heard your stories and I went, oh my God, there's hope here. There's definitely hope here. And I thought, maybe this could work for me, because I heard stories just like mine. And the head started going up and down. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, that happened to me. Yeah, I felt just like that. And these guys were in the same shoes that I was in, and they had recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And it drew me in. But if it wasn't for these steps, I would have relapsed. And I share, I died a slow death in my first 90 days. My first 3 months in this program, I died a slow death in the rooms of AA, because sober sucks. Sober, when you're not working a program, sucks. Just not drinking and going to meetings, which is what I fell for, I thought was the program. And the program is this. The fellowship is here to support us until we can go through this. And it wasn't until somebody armed with the facts came up to me and said, Pat, you're not working a program. I said, I've been working this program. I've been going to 4 meetings a day, 270 a month. I counted them. I said, I've been coming here religiously. Yeah, but you haven't been doing anything. What are you talking about? I'm not doing anything. Yeah, there's a program here, Pat. Yeah, I know. I've been coming. No, you haven't. You've been visiting the fellowship. There's a program here. It's called This Big Book. And this guy introduced me to the problem. And not knowing the problem was an issue for my first 3 months. I did not know what it meant to be an alcoholic. All I heard was about people, places, and things. And something about if your ass falls off, pick it up and take it to a meeting. I don't know what that means, but don't drink and go to meetings. Don't pick up no matter what. And I'm a guy who picked up knowing he was going to jail. I'm a guy who picked up knowing I was going to lose custody of my kids. I was a guy that picked up and knew that I was going to end up divorced. And you're telling me don't pick up no matter what. And Brian explained to me about this obsession of the mind and this allergy of the body. Brian explained that there was no way I was capable of staying stopped. And once I start, you're not going to control it. You have a 20-year history. It says it's not going to happen. And there is no human power, obviously. No child, no family member, no mother, no wife that is going to keep you stopped. And I was sold on the 3 pertinent ideas. That night, I was sold on those 3 pertinent ideas. That's a requirement for recovery. Not for membership. We talked about the requirement for membership. Desire. But there's requirements for recovery, and 2 of them is the first 2 steps, the 3 pertinent ideas that we just read. Facing an insurmountable obstacle. William James says, facing an insurmountable obstacle and being convinced that no human power can solve the problem. Seeking a deity to solve the problem. A power greater than human power. You have to be convinced of that. That's the next line, being convinced. Yeah. And the rest brought me to 6. The rest was the foundation. I'm sure Matty talked about it last week. The first 5 steps are the foundation of this whole program. The rest of it is contingent on that, on how well we do those first 5. 3 was just a decision, but not just a decision to seek God. It was a decision to change my behavior. It was a decision to align my will with God's will, to align my behavior with what God would have me do. The conversation shifts completely. Yeah, mental and physical, important. To be convinced of the mental and physical aspect of the illness. It's not enough. It's not enough. To know you're an alcoholic and addict is not enough. How many have known that and relapsed? Right? Right. Yeah. It's not enough. It's not going to keep you stopped. Putting your mind to it isn't going to work. I'm evidence of that. I needed to make a decision to seek God's help with my behavior. My behavior is not in line with spiritual principles. And is putting me in conflict with everybody, including me. The 3rd step tells me I'm selfish, I'm self-centered, driven by underforms of fear, self-delusion, self-pity. And I step on the toes of everybody around me, and they retaliate, and I blame them. They would just do what I want. They would just get in line with what I need them to do. Everybody would be happy, including me. What's the next line? They don't usually think so. They don't usually think so, right? Self will run riot. The alcoholic is an extreme example of self will run riot, but they don't think so. Well, find out. Do 4. Find out if it's true. That's what 4 and 5 is about, truth. Truth. This behavior is creating a spiritual issue. It's creating an internal issue. This internal issue, if not treated, will make me pick up again. This emotional issue that I'm dealing with will make me pick up a drink or a drug because I can't stand the way I feel for one more freaking second. How many have been there? Right? And it didn't matter whether I knew the consequences or not. It didn't matter whether I believed the lie or knew the truth. It didn't matter. Because there's that F it paragraph in the big book. Right? What about when we deliberately go out and get drunk knowing what the consequences are going to be? Because I can't stand me for one more second. And if I don't get my principles in line, if I don't somehow align my will with spiritual principles, that internal condition, that spiritual malady that Bill calls it, that torment is not going to go away. And the only way I can eliminate that conflict is to eliminate the conflict with you and with God and with myself. Well, is that true? Well, I found out it was true in 4 and 5. I found out it was true. I shared with you guys last time I was here that I got like 3 names down on my 4th step, maybe 4. And I went, oh shit, this is all my fault. Oh my God, right? We get to that responsibility column, right? And we start seeing the truth. She took the house. That's what pissed me off. She was protecting her children. She took the car. She had you arrested. Yes, you assaulted her. You know? She put a restraining on her. You're dangerous.
Details.
The truth. I'm pissed off at the police because they arrested me. They were called to the scene. You know? It was a 911 call. You know what I mean? They're doing their job. But I had to see that on paper. I couldn't see it in my head. I could not see any of that in my head. I had to see it on the paper. Pissed off at the IRS for taking my money. No, they were taking their money. You know? You pay them, they don't take your money. But my miracle, and I wanted to share this because, you know, the first 5 of this foundation they're talking about, the miracle in my life took place in 5. My life flipped upside down in 5. And it was the scariest step ever for me. To trust you. To trust anyone. I don't trust anyone. When I get here, I trust no one. I didn't trust my father. You think I'm going to trust you? I didn't trust the 2 most important people in my life. You think I'm going to trust you? I sat at Denny's gossiping with you people. You know? I sat at you taking everybody's inventory in the meetings. It kills people, by the way. It's prevented me from doing a 5th step with anybody that's in these rooms. Because I figure my 5th step's going to be on that Denny's table the next week. And I got this tough love men's group that I'm involved in called the Boca Boys Club. A bunch of old men in Deerfield. You know, I don't know where they got the name, you know. Eventually they became the Boca Boys Club. I ended up in Boca. But this is the people that showed me how to show up in AA. These are the people that taught me discipline in AA. These are the people that said, shut the F up, Pat. You can't fix it. Shut up. Pat, when you figure out what your priorities are, then we'll talk to you. You want to talk about your ex-wife again? Come before the meeting or after the meeting. We're going to talk about the big book during the meeting. And as a matter of fact, if you're going to chair this meeting, wear a collar or you can't chair. I showed up without a collar the next week, right, to chair the meeting. They said, you can't chair. I said, what do you mean I can't chair? You don't have a collar. I said, what's the difference whether I wear a collar or not if I'm chairing? He goes, difference is you can't chair. That was it. Gave him the finger and left. You know, bunch of assholes. You know. Next week I had a collar on. Chaired the meeting for the rest of the month. Those were those guys. You pull your phone out in that meeting, they stop the meeting. Go ahead, we'll wait. You know. Yeah. I mean, they didn't put, or take it outside. Somebody, just take it outside. Old Bud Reichart, man. Bud used to throw his cigarettes on the table. Son of a bitch. Throw his cigarettes down on the table. Take that shit outside. Fear kept me from looking at my phone. No way I was answering that. But you know what? These guys, there was a meeting before the meeting at the pizza shop. I can't remember the name of it right now, next to Home Depot in Boca. There was a meeting at that pizza shop. You didn't need any money to show up, and you come up there and dump all your problems on that table. All your problems on that table. And they'd be there an hour, 2 hours before the meeting, and you didn't need any money. Everybody just threw 20s in there, and the waiters walked out of there with huge tips, and everybody ate. And after the meeting, they'd stand in that parking lot with you till 2 in the morning if it's what it took. But during the meeting, you were going to follow their friggin' rules, or not be there. Not be there. They were on my ass about this fifth step. When are you going to do that fifth step, Pat? I'm going to get to it. Who are you going to do it with? I don't know yet. You should do it with your sponsor. I don't know. Much as I owe him my life, I couldn't do it. I figured I'm going to shut them up. I'm going to call St. Andrew's Church at 11 o'clock at night. Nobody will answer the phone. I'll tell them I tried last night. Nobody answered. Right? And Father Quinn picked up the phone. And I said, I'm an alcoholic, and that's all he needed to hear. He said, and you want to do a fifth step. Be in my office tomorrow morning at 9:30. And I didn't know it, but the Coral Springs group had been meeting there for years. And he knew what you wanted when you called. And I spent 2.5 years, I should have. I spent 2.5 hours with Father Quinn the next morning, and I'm telling you, my life forever changed. My life went from dark to light. It was a Lazarus moment for me. It was an incredible moment for me. It's hard to describe. Eckhart Tolle talks about walking into a room for the 100th time and seeing it for the first time. And I left that office and I walked into that courtyard that I had seen 100 times, and I saw it for the first time. I saw flowers, bright red flowers, bright yellow flowers, bright green foliage. It was just, it was a new world came into view. And I'm going to work after I leave his office. I'm going, these trees are everywhere. I'm like, where were they? I realized I had been looking at asphalt and bumpers my whole life. I walked with my head down, looking at the ground. I didn't acknowledge anybody beside me. You didn't even get a head bob from me. I was just focused on what I needed to do and where I was going to go and what time am I getting off so I can get my next drink or my next drug. You could have died in the car beside me. I would have never seen it. I was looking at that light because when that light goes yellow, this one's going green, and I'm going to be the first one out of this intersection because I got shit to do. And for the first time, the world came into view. I was going home that night. I see this gorgeous sunset, and I can't wait to tell this lady at the toll booth about this freaking sunset. And I look at her, and I go, look at that. She goes, what? I said, that. She goes, it's a sunset. It's there every night. I had been driving it for 12 years. I never saw it. It's just incredible what happens when the light comes on. We were just talking about that, right? When that light comes on. What did Bill say? There was something about his eyes. Something changed. God entered my heart that day. The solution that we have to offer here is the great fact, right? The great fact is this and nothing less. That we've had deep and effective spiritual experiences, spiritual awakenings, personality changes sufficient to recover from alcoholism or drug addiction, ideas, emotions, and attitudes that were once the guiding forces of these men and women replaced by a whole new set of concepts. That's the great fact that has revolutionized our lives and our attitude on life. The central fact of my life that day was that God had entered my heart and lived in a way which was indeed miraculous. And commenced to do for me what I couldn't do for myself. The obsession was lifted. I never had the obsession to pick up a drink or a drug since that day. I'm not telling you I haven't thought about it. I stubbed my toe. I think Vicodin, to this day. But then my second thought is ibuprofen would work. My mind still knows what the reaction to that. It still remembers the third drink. It still remembers when that oxygen kicks in. It still remembers that warmth. But I know the truth. Want to blow up your life, Pat? Pick up a drink. Pick up a drink. for the first time in my life, and I'm serious, for the first time since I was, and as far back as I can remember is 5, and I've shared with you guys earlier in these step series. When I was 5, I skipped school. I don't even know what skipping school was. I was afraid to walk into the school. And the police would pick me up, hide behind the school, and take me home. I was tormented at 5. And for the next 16 years, I was a tormented kid. And then I found Boone's Farm. And then other stuff. And I had a 20-year run of ease and comfort. And then it stopped working. And I came here tormented without the drink. I was tormented with the drink. I was tormented without the drink. I'm standing at that turning point. I have no choice but to try this because you said it worked. And for the first time in my freaking life, I'm at peace without a substance in my body. I'm at peace without a substance. At that moment, when I left his office, it's hard to explain. How do you explain a spiritual experience? How do you explain that? You can't. You have to experience it. That's where faith comes from. I believed you. I was willing to believe you. And I took the action, and I got the results, and now I had faith that there was a God. It was the God of my misunderstanding for many years. But it didn't matter. You guys didn't tell me I had to believe in anything specific. Just believe that you're not it, Pat. Just believe that there's a power out there that has solved your problem, and I believed it that day. It had been proven to me that day that there is a God, or whatever you want to call it. When I say God, whatever you think that is, that's it. Yeah. That's the really cool thing about AA and CA and NA and all them A's. You know? The DAAs and HAs and all of them. They all work. But you got to work it. You got to work it. That's the foundation. You know, the book at that point gives us a first break. This was made to do quickly, by the way. It gives us our first break. It's an hour. That's the break during the steps. 1 hour. Now, we got a fellowship to lean on here, which allows us to take our time. Now, anybody that's telling you that take a year to do the steps, I would get another sponsor. I'm just, I know it's controversial, but, I would not go down that road. If you can hold your breath for a year, maybe you don't belong here. I can't. I couldn't hold my breath for 3 months. This was designed to do quickly. Give us a rest for an hour just to review what you've done. Have you done the best you can? That's what I ask my guys, because I did the best I could. And I'll be honest with you, I held something back. And I'm grateful that I did the best I could at that time and moved on. Because had I not done that 5th step, I would not be standing here a one white chip guy. There'd be a relapse in my story, or I may be dead. Because I was suicidal 90 days in recovery. I don't think I could have lived sober. I don't think I could live like that without this experience that I had in my 5th step. And I didn't even trust the priest with this particular thing. And I think by law, they're supposed to not say anything. I don't know. Is it a creed or a law? I don't even know. But it was sexual, I'll be honest with you. It was something that kid stuff, that I just didn't want to put out there. I was afraid the priest would judge me. I just didn't want to put it out there. And I held on to it for almost 5 years. And let me tell you something. If you don't deal with it, it'll deal with you. How free do you want to be? Will you drink over it? I didn't, but I wasn't totally free either. It was renting space. And out of a resentment, and this is just the story of my life. What I think is rejection is really redirection, right? It's just, and I just realized that recently, by the way. Like resentments come from rejection, right? For me, but it's really redirection, right? And from this resentment, I get redirected to a place where I run into a guy who does a talk. Howard Cohen does a talk that shares almost the same thing I held back from a priest from a podium. He wasn't specific, but in a general way, he shared an experience. I'm like, oh my God, that's my guy. Became my sponsor for the next 10 years. And I was able to get free of it. And I really believe if I had not done my 5th step with Father Quinn, I would have never made it to that point to be able to share that with Howard. You know? So what I tell my guys, did you do the best you can at this time? And I'll ask them, did you hold anything back? And they can lie if they want. I did. That's the cool thing. We're accountable to ourselves, right? You're as sober as you say you are in this room. You can lie about your recovery date. It doesn't matter. You know, it's about to our own self be true, right? I'm not going to judge. You say you got 10 years, I'll say you got 10 years. Even though you picked up a white chip yesterday, you know, you're as sober as you say you are. It'll come back. You know, hypocrites get drunk, they get high. You know, that's the crazy thing about doing this, because you got to kind of walk the line a little bit. You get up here and lie, you're gonna get drunk. You know? And this tells us, if we're convinced, if we take that hour and we've done the best we can, we move into 6, right? We have seen, after looking at 4 and 5, you can't tell me that's not objectionable. That person is objectionable. That person that I exposed in my 4th and 5th step, I despise. Is that objectable? Are you kidding me? Am I willing to let that go? Oh yeah. I don't want to be that guy anymore. I can't live being that guy anymore. That guy creates resentment, anger, fear, guilt, remorse, shame. That guy creates spiritual sickness, is what that guy creates. And by the way, if that guy doesn't change, he's going to drink. If that guy doesn't change, he's building another 4th and 5th step is what he's doing. And I'm saying I didn't do that anyway, but at least not to that extreme. It's objectionable. Are you willing to let that go? Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. You know, I think, in my opinion, and that's, when I'm not reading out of the book, that's all you're getting, you know, because the only facts are here. In my opinion, everything leads here, and everything leads back here. Everything peaks at 6 and 7, and everything leads back to 6 and 7. And that's just my opinion. You know, and that's why I think Bill only spent 2 paragraphs on it. You know, he goes from 6 lines to 7 pages in the 12 and 12 in step 6, and then 7 lines to 7 pages in the 12 and 12. He expands a little bit more on it. But this is not rocket science, right? It's really simple. Stop doing what you shouldn't do and start doing what you should do, right? Isn't it really that simple? Stop lying. Start telling the truth, right? Stop being selfish. Start being unselfish. Stop running on fear. Pray over it. Stop being inconsiderate. Be considerate. Do the opposite of the character defects. Simple, but not easy. Not easy, because I get something out of that. And it's been a way of life for me. I got here at 36. It was a way of life for me for 36 years. That's not going to change overnight. I get something out of those defects of character. What I need to do is bring my instincts, to bring my behavior in line with God's. What God intended them to be, right? We talked about that in step 3, the social instinct, the obscurity instinct, and the sex instinct. The 3 basic instincts that make up me, that make up us, right? The need to come together, to work together, to be liked and accepted with everybody, the need to build shelter, the need to be successful materially, the need to be successful emotionally, let her have somebody depend on me or me depend on somebody else, and the need to procreate. You know, these 3 instincts that are necessary for the society to survive. Problem is, I use them for pleasure only, right? And I take them beyond what God intended them to be. And it's going to take some work to reel them in. Those non-spiritual muscles are strong, man, when I get here. The spiritual muscles, very weak. Very atrophied. Right? There is no muscle there. Right? I'm going to need to exercise those muscles, which means I'm going to fall short. It means I'm going to fall short. I love that paragraph at the end of chapter 5 where it talks about, suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. I know the truth now. I know what my defects are. I know I need to do the opposite of those defects. What if I fall short? Am I going to drink? It says, no, not always. We're broken. The human condition's a broken condition. We're going to screw up. We're going to fall short. But what he says, but if we recognize that we fell short and we ask God to take us to better things, which is code for we pray, right? To take us to better things, we will be fine. Right? Okay, I screwed up. I'm not going to do that again. We have steps to allow us to make the amends. I'm not going to do that again. It says, but if we continue behavior that we know is wrong and hurting other people, we are surely to drink, and he uses the words, they are facts out of our experience. You can't continue that behavior and stay stuck. No, there's bells you can't unring. You can't unring the cheat bell. Can't go down that road. Can't rob a bank. You're not going to unring that. There's certain things you got to think about before you go into it. It's going to take work. And here's why I think, this is my opinion again, this is why I think he only spent 2 paragraphs on 6 and 7, because we're going to address these defects in 10. That's where we're going to work. That's why I say it leads back here. What is step 10? It's keeping my defects in check, right? I've recognized them. I'm willing to let them go. I'm going to ask God to help me let them go, and now I'm going to work on them in 10. But we're going to have these 2 tools of change in place before I go out and start making amends, right? There better be some demonstration that I've changed before I come up to you and say, I was wrong. I deeply regret. It better look like there better be something about my eyes at that point, right? Showing up at my mother's without asking for money would be a good start. Sending her a birthday card would be a good start. Little stuff. Demonstrate change, right? And it starts small. There was no way I could pay my mother back everything I owed her when I got sober. But when she saw that birthday card, she cried. And that wasn't my idea, by the way. I needed to be told that. I wish I came up with it. That's where sponsorship comes in.
Yes.
Hey, do something nice for somebody. Do something. Demonstrate you've changed. Show up and don't ask for anything. Bring something. But it's difficult. I love when Russ always talked about, as Bill sees it, the fudge. Mm-hmm. Just such a, page 100 in As Bill Sees It, talks about Bill Wilson, and I got to go to East Dorset, and the Wilson house is in East Dorset, and right next door is the Griffith house where Bill was raised by his grandparents. And you get to go up into Bill's bedroom, and you can see Mount Aeolus. It's kind of tree covered now, but he could see Mount Aeolus from that window. And he was dreaming about climbing this mountain his whole life. I just want to climb that mountain and be able to look down on East Dorset from the top of Mount Aeolus. And he says his aunt showed up with a plate of fudge for his birthday, and he forgot all about the mountain and chased that fudge for the next 35 years. And that's exactly what happened to me. What happened to me. I tasted this fudge, and I'm not going to tell you what it was. I was alone. But I tasted this fudge at like 13, somewhere in there. And that's all I wanted after that. I chased that for the next 30-some years. Right? And I knew to get that, I just needed to get enough money to get the right car, and then I would get the fudge. And you can fill in that blank however you want. But it was her. It was all about her. Everything was about her. Everything was about that sex instinct. And it was a driving force in my whole. It's still a driving force in my life. It's a driving force in everybody's life. The need to be liked is a driving force. The need for success is a driving force. It validates us. The need for sex is a driving force. How do I reel those in? I can't. I am powerless over those defects of character. Absolutely powerless. Now, the best story I have, and I think I was about 15 years sober, because it kind of touches on every aspect of my character defects, right? I'm doing this job for this lady. I walk in, and as soon as somebody starts telling me how to do my job, my defenses go up, and my ego comes out, and I tell them how long I've been doing this, and that I'm the best there is at this, and you have no, you hired me, so don't tell me how to do my job, right? I even know myself so well now that I know when I say that, something is going to go wrong. I know it now. I'm convinced of it because I've seen it over and over again. So lately I've stopped saying that because I know as soon as I say that, something's going to go wrong and go, yeah, you're really good at what you do. So, but as soon as I said that to the lady, I'm putting this microwave in for her, and I start tapping this shelf beside her, and a piece of wood comes down and hits the stove, brand new stove that they just delivered, and it puts a big dent in the back panel, right, in the control panel. And I told my drop cloth, and I look, and I cover it back up. And I look around, see if anybody saw it, and I'm thinking maybe I can get out of here. And the spiritual warfare takes place now, right? Like, maybe I can get out of here and they won't know I did it. They'll think it was like that because somebody just delivered it earlier, And then I think, well, maybe I can fix it. So I'm taking my fingers and I'm trying to make this metal dent go away with my fingers, right? I'm using telepathy on it, you know what I mean? There was a time in the 70s I could move shit. On the right drug. I've actually moved ashtrays and stuff. And I'm like thinking, I got Yoda on my one shoulder going, do what's right, you must. And Vader's going, fuck it. Get out of here as fast as you can, And I got this warfare. I'm doing this whole job while that's in my head. I haven't admitted to it yet. And I realize I need to just do the right thing. But that's a struggle, though. And I wish it wasn't. I wish it wasn't a struggle. Because I don't trust the process. I don't trust the process at that point. Right? So I finally admit to it. Look, I'm sorry I dented your range. And I heard it, how great I am at my job. And she said, just change the panel. Just change the control panel. So I order the control panel twice. It comes in wrong twice. Right? Now her husband calls me and said, listen, and he has some choice words for me. Give me a new stove or I'm suing you. You got it, right? And the rest of the story is just, why don't I trust the process? Why don't I just do the right thing, And I go to the dealer and I tell him I need a stove for so-and-so. I damaged the stove. I need to replace it. Can you give me another stove? Hopefully at cost, And the guy says to me, the manager of the store says to me, Pat, how long have you been working for us? Since 1991? 15 years? You have bailed us out more times than we can count. It's on us. Just take the stove, bring the old one back, we'll put it at the clearance center and we'll sell it. No problem. Why don't I trust the process? Why don't I trust the process? And it's over. I'm going down to Alcoholics and God to do a step series. I'm on my way there, and I'm pulling out of my driveway, and my stepdaughter pulls her Cadillac beside my truck. I don't see it, right? And I take the whole side of her car out, leaving the driveway, right? Now, a normal person would walk in and say, I just hit your car. All right? I opened the garage and got a plunger. This is a couple years ago, right? I'm out there pulling the dent out with the plunger, right? And then I get some rubbing compound to get my paint off of her car, thinking she'll think she did it in a shopping lot somewhere, at Publix or something. And I left. I'm going to Alcoholics and God to speak on spiritual principles. And I just hit and ran my stepdaughter's car. You talk about warfare, right? Hypocrites get drunk. That's what's going through my head. You're a hypocrite. You don't practice what you preach about. I got on the phone, called Shanna, just hit your daughter's car, let me know how much I owe. Click. And look, I can't do my own taxes still. There's warfare there. I look at those things. Is this a business expense or a personal expense? Well, who knows? Nobody knows. I just email everything to the accountant and just tell me what I owe or what I'm getting back. I don't want the warfare. I don't want to go through that anymore. I want out of it. It's going to take work. It's going to take work. But I'm better. I'm better. It's towards perfection, not perfection. I think that's kind of a cop-out. I hate when I hear that. I fell short today. It's progress, not perfection. No, it's towards perfection. Bill later says that we're shooting the arrow towards perfection, knowing that we're never going to get there, but on the way, we're going to become some much better people along the way. Much better. Kenny Kane, I don't know if some of you guys knew Kenny, passed a couple years ago. Kenny, I was about 5 years sober. I might not even been that sober, but Kenny was about 15 years sober. And Kenny got up to the podium speaking on step 6, and he said, when I came into AA, they told me I had to shoplift less. Right? And I went, son of a bitch, we got a thief doing a step series. We got a shoplifter speaking at our meeting. I wanted to call it emergency group conscience, because it's my meeting. You know what I mean? I own this meeting, and I do. I call it emergency group. We got this guy in, and everybody's laughing at me. Like, it didn't take me long to realize Kenny nailed it, didn't he? He nailed it. Shoplift less, lie less, cheat less, right? I mean, reel those defects in. It's going to take practice. I'm going to fall short here and there. And how come I lie when the truth will do? What is up with that? Why will I tell you I saw Eric Clapton when I never saw Eric Clapton? Why will I tell you that I know Joe What's-His-Face and I don't know Joe What's-His-Face? Why is it so important to me that I'm accepted by you? Why is it so important that I have the nicest car? Why is it so important that I wear an expensive watch? Why is it so important that I have the right girl? Why is that the central fact of my life? And by the way, and I got that from Russell too, what are you thinking about the most is what the central fact of your life is. And you can ask yourself that question right now. What am I thinking about the most? That's the central fact. God needs to see the central fact of my life. I can't run this show. And that's what it takes. It takes me offending myself to change. That's when you know you're on the right track. When you offend yourself, it's easy to not say the right thing to other people. And it's easy to stop doing the things that put you in jail, or have you arrested or have you charged. That stuff's the easy stuff. It's that more subtle stuff, It's the stuff when nobody's around. You guys know me by reputation. God knows me in the dark, right? That's Oswald Chambers, man. That's my man right there. God knows me when I'm alone, by myself, in the dark. You know nothing about that person. That's the guy. That's where the work is. That's the work. When nobody's around, when I'm by myself in my head, or when I screw something up and nobody's there to make me accountable. When I show up at work late and they ask me what happened and I tell them I caught the bridge and there was no freaking bridge. Right? But they don't know that, right? And I walk away and I go, you just lied. I'm offended myself. That doesn't mean I stopped. Next time they asked me, I said, yeah, this time it was a train. But now I'm really pissing myself off. I'm going, when are you going to change? What is wrong with you? And the third time they asked me that I was late, I didn't say anything. I just walked away. Right. That's progress. That's progress. Someday I'll get to a point where I go, hey, I just got up late. I don't care what you think of me. That's a hard thing to do, isn't it? We're people pleasers, man. Society tells us what it means to be successful. They got billboards that tell you what you're supposed to look like and what you're supposed to be wearing and what weight you're supposed to be and what height you're supposed to be. And anything out of that is abnormal. Who the hell decided that? Who in society decided to tell me what weight I should be or what height I should be? We all have our gifts. We all have a gift. So maybe my gift isn't being in GQ. Maybe my gift is sharing my freaking brokenness from this podium and hope that somebody will go, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm just like you. I was just like you when I got here too. Yeah, I felt just like that. And maybe that's my gift. I believe it is.
I do.
I believe it is. I believe this is exactly where God wants me. I'm not confused about God's will for me anymore. I know where I'm supposed to be. And you know what? I don't care too much anymore what you think about what I drive, or that I have some cheap Citizens watch on, you know, or I don't have any Gucci shoes or any Jordans. You know, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me anymore. But it took a long time to get there. It took a long time to get there. And it's something I still have to work on. It's something I still have to argue with myself sometimes to say the right thing, to say what's right, do what's right. Bill talks about eventually overcoming that mountain in another story in As Bill Sees It. But he talks about the trudge. He uses that word, the climb. How difficult the climb is, how difficult it is overcoming the defects, how difficult it is to reel in my behavior and align myself with spiritual principles, to start choosing principles instead of money, you know, to stop choosing principles instead of attention, to start choosing principles instead of sex. It takes a lot of work. It's hard. It's a trudge. It's a stumble. And he says, while we're stumbling up that mountain, seeking perfection, seeking the top, seeking the peak, don't forget to stop and turn around and look back and see how far we've come. Right? Look down and say, man, I've come a long freaking way. I have come a long, I'm not blowing my horn, but I'm telling you, I am nowhere near that asshole that walked into these rooms. And that's exactly who I was. I despised that guy that walked in here. I'm nowhere near that guy anymore. I'm not where I want to be. But I'm nowhere near that. Yeah. This is a lot about trusting God, man. It's all about doing what's right, knowing it's going to be okay, and not knowing what it is. Right? That God's in charge of it. I know that if I do the right thing, everything's going to work out. I've learned some cool lessons in sobriety. I've learned when you're generous, you get blessed. When you give stuff away, you get more. There's these paradoxes that exist in here that I don't even understand. You know, the Dead Sea's dead because nothing goes out, so nothing can come in. If nothing goes out, nothing's coming in. Greed sets in. Then I'm scared to death. Everybody's going to take my stuff. There's such a freedom in doing the right thing and knowing it'll be okay. I don't know what it is. And it might not be okay in the moment. It might not feel okay in the moment. But in the long run, you know, what means more to me than my reputation? You know? What they call the dash, right? What means more than the dash? You know, who was he? I don't want to be Pat the Tundra guy. You know, I don't want to be when I'm gone. Somebody said, "Who was it? You remember Pat, the guy who drove the Tundra, big ass truck? Not some little Ford Tempo."
You didn't mean to offend anybody who drives a Tempo.
Look, I'm going to end with this. I see these two steps, like steps 1 and 2, for character defects. You know, I am powerless over alcohol and drugs, and only God can remove the obsession. I am powerless over these defects of character, and only God can reel them in. Only God can remove my obsession to satisfy those instinctual drives. Absolutely powerless. And that's a byproduct of humility. And that humility came from steps 4 and 5. Right? And my favorite definition is in the 5th step in the 12 and 12. A clear recognition of exactly who and what I am. I know exactly who and what I am today. But in 7, with humility as my guide, knowing that, I will become what God wants me to be. That's what I want. I want to recognize who I am and then who God wants me to be. And with humility as my guide, I'm going to go out from here. And the difference between the 7-step prayer, and I know somebody will probably do 7, but I got to say it. The difference between 3 and 7 is amen. It's the same freaking prayer. You read those prayers, they're the same prayer, different wording, same prayer. The only difference is there's an amen after step 7 because the traveler has changed. Right? Nothing changed in 3. That was terms of surrender in 3. Right? That was to validate my new position. In 7, I've changed. Amen. Thanks for letting me be here.